The air felt heavy, damp on the skin. Street lights smeared in the drizzle, traffic moving slow. Past Avenue B I saw him. Hood up, jacket zipped, a paper bag pressed to his chest. The bottles inside clinked off beat, not matching the way he walked. He didn't wave, just stepped off the curb, pulled open the back door, and slid in. "Chelsea," he said, then added, "Not the main way." The meter clicked. I cut south, off the big streets, into narrow lanes where shuttered gates shook in the damp wind. Every bump made the bag knock, glass shifting slow inside. He kept his eyes on the side window, not the windshield, watching reflections smear by. Sometimes he nodded at a corner or a faded sign, but never explained. When I asked if he was from around here, his answer was flat. "Used to be." Nothing more. The drizzle got heavier. Wipers squeaked across the glass, then settled. We slid past a loading dock, forklift parked in the rain. His shoulders curled forward, like he was bracing for something, though nothing showed on his face. At last he tapped the glass. "Here." I slowed onto a narrow strip, brick wall on one side, dead painted steel door on the other. He leaned close enough to meet my eyes in the mirror. 2 minutes. Leave it running. He stepped out with the bag held tight to his ribs. Knocked on the steel. 2. Pause. 3. The door opened a crack, enough for him to slip in. Closed again. I was left under one pole light, drizzle smearing the brick. After a few minutes, the door opened again. He stepped out with the same bag, holding it with one hand under the bottom like it weighed more now. Got back in without a word. "Chelsea," he said again. We pulled out. Engine low, silence hanging too heavy. The bottles went quiet with him. Uptown, the rain thickened into a steady hiss, smearing the lights into streaks. The bag sat on his lap, too still, like the glass had decided not to speak anymore. His hand hooked around the twisted handle, not tight, just guarding it from tipping. Street lamps carved brief flashes on his sleeve, catching the edge of a damp label where the paper had softened. We crossed 10th. A diner glowed with a neon coffee cup, a waitress wiping down a booth. Her reflection doubled in the window. He looked once, then turned back to the street. "You want 11th?" I asked. "Stay on 12th till 8th. I'll call it," he said, voice steady. I kept rolling. Drizzle tapped the roof, wipers clicking time. A siren swelled, then faded before reaching us. Storefront slid past, paint curling on wood. A fire escape dripped into a tin bucket, each ping sharp, and he tracked it with his eyes like he was counting. Chelsea wasn't far, but he rode as if it were miles. His gaze flicked toward alleys, doorways, places where the night holds shadows. Never behind us, always ahead. At 8th, the sweeper crept along, brushes hissing over the asphalt. I eased around it, tires hugging the seams. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught him staring at the bag, not opening it, just studying it, like he could see through the paper. "You good?" I asked. He nodded once. "Yeah, just keep going." Half a block later, he told me left. We cut into a strip where facades looked polished, but the windows stared blank. A black SUV idled under the mist, its lights scattering gold flecks in the air. He didn't look at it. We stopped under an awning with one bulb buzzing overhead. He leaned forward. "This is fine." "You sure?" "You said Chelsea." "This is fine." He pulled a folded stack of bills from his jacket, dropped it on the armrest, and stepped out. Bag close to him, gone between two buildings. I slid the money away. The cab still smelled of wet paper, stronger than the rain. I rolled away slow, tires whispering over patched asphalt. In the mirror, the block dropped out of sight quick, nothing left of him there. What lingered was heavier than the city. West Side traffic picked up enough to matter. Cabs jockeying, a bus sighing at a stop, a messenger slicing lanes. I moved with it, meter ticking, but my head was still back on that damp strip, watching him disappear. Every bottle clink I caught from open bodegas echoed the sound his bundle should have made, but hadn't, not on the ride back. Whatever he carried now didn't want to be heard. I cut across side streets, avoiding the clogged avenue. At a red, a couple spilled out of a late bar. Heels clacking, voices sharp, their shadows long in the wet shine. The light flipped, and I let the city pull me forward. Couldn't shake the way he'd checked his watch earlier. Not impatience, synchronizing. You don't knock a rhythm like that by accident. And you don't haul glass through drizzle for nothing. By 40th, neon from a liquor store bled into the gutter. A clerk restocked bottles, each rattle sharp. My grip on the wheel tightened without asking me. The streets thinned. Garbage trucks rumbled, orange strobes bouncing off brick. I cut into a block I knew from another night. Bakery dark, diesel where the bread smell should have been. Parked under a canopy, checked the phone, no fares. Rain tapped steady on the roof, a rhythm that could drown you if you let it. Movement in the side mirror broke the lull. A hooded figure walking past, jacket slick, no bag in sight. Didn't look at me, didn't slow, just slipped into a recessed doorway and was gone. Could have been anyone. Could have been him. Either way, I sat longer than I needed to, watching the empty doorway until the radio crackled with a fare uptown. I pulled out, tires hissing. The doorway stayed behind, but not far enough. Uptown runs at this hour were a coin toss. Tonight the avenues leaned empty. Mist hung under the lamps. With the heater low and the window cracked, I caught a metallic edge, and under it, the ghost of whatever those bottles once held. A sharp ping broke from a diner on 57th. Coffee machine, maybe, or not. The diner's awning dripped steady, apron-clad counterman smoking in the damp. Before I could ask, he said, "Guy was here. Said he had a ride coming." Then he walked off. "Which way?" He pointed west, toward the river. I rolled slow through green lights, scanning sidewalks. Just bundled figures, plastic bags swinging, heads down. None of them him. By 11th, the blocks had that warehouse quiet. Big doors shut, refrigeration units humming. That's when I saw it. A paper sack, sagging in the wet, left at the mouth of a dock. I slowed. Rain beaded and slid off it, catching orange light. No movement. No sound. A horn barked behind me. Another cab sliding past, driver giving me a look. I pushed on, leaving the bag to the dark. The streets grew warmer near the clubs, perfume and fried food leaking into the night. At a crosswalk, a woman in a red coat passed. Her heels cracked a rhythm. 2, pause, 3. Same as the knock on that steel door. My hands tightened on the wheel before I let them go. Some rides fade clean. Others hang like smoke. His was the second kind, pieces without the picture. The bag. The watch check. The silence inside. All of it circling. Near the park, mist lifted, air sharp again. I drifted side blocks instead of going home. Narrow stoops, trees leaning toward the street, shadows deep enough to hold a man if they wanted. Every so often, I thought I saw him straighten in one of them. At Delancey, a black delivery alley opened between shuttered stores. Air dropped cold just passing it. I didn't stop, but my mind slipped back, stillness thick as tar, the sense of someone waiting just out of reach. It reminded me of another night, another fare. I'd thought the cab was empty until a single cough came from the back seat. Quiet enough to doubt. Loud enough you couldn't. But that's a different story. Later, I stopped for coffee at a bodega where the counter guy always looks like he's halfway to another thought. Burnt espresso grounds and bagels scented the air. I leaned against the fender, watching the traffic lights cycle colors across wet asphalt. Green made the street look safe. Red made it look like it was waiting. Back in the cab, I thought about swinging past that steel door. But I didn't. I headed north. Streets behind me went quiet, like the night was packing up. Heater low, coffee still hot, city breaking into empty patches. Nights like this don't explain much. You just keep driving, holding on to scraps, the knock, the bag, that block. Sometimes the next turn gives you another piece, sometimes not. No new fares came before the bridge. Road stretched open, blacktop shining under lamps. I thought of him again, not the bag, but the way he carried it. That told more than what was inside. By the time I hit the East Village again, mist had cleared, but the night still felt heavy. I cut across narrow blocks, letting the cab hum over seams, every shadow carrying his shape if I let it. In the rear view, the seat caught a stray street lamp. For a breath, the bag sat there again, upright, top twisted tight. Then the light shifted, only vinyl left. The next ping pulled me toward Hell's Kitchen. Streets ran short between old brick and two new towers. I idled outside a bar wedged between a laundromat and locksmith. A couple smoked under the awning, bass thumping faint through the wall. No fare. Then he stepped out the side door. Hood down this time, hair damp, jacket the same. In his hand, a paper sack, lighter now, grip looser, but close enough to tighten my gut. He didn't look surprised. Just opened the cab and slid in like the seat had been waiting. Same spot, he said. I didn't ask. Meter woke up, and we slid into the crosstown flow. The bag sat tilted, silent. At ninth, a red held us. In the glass, his reflection showed eyes fixed on the street, one hand rubbing the bag's corner. You always carry the same bag? I asked. He met my eyes in the mirror. Not always. Just when it matters. The light changed. He guided me. Left, right, left, until we were back at that steel door. Same dead paint. Same pole light. Same knock. 2. Pause. 3. The door swallowed him again. I kept the engine running, drizzle painting the pavement into silver smears. Minutes slid by, sealed tight. Then he came out slower, bundle sagging soft. This time he carried it by the neck, like it no longer needed guarding. He slid back in without a word. Where to? East Village, he said. The ride back was short, quiet, but not empty. When we stopped, he set bills down, stepped out, bag swinging loose at his side. Turned the corner and was gone. I sat there longer than needed, the smell of wet paper thick in the cab. The rain never came back, but the night still held its damp, keeping the streets hushed. That steel door stuck in my head. So did a cough from another night. A cough that wasn't mine. That's for another night. I'll tell it if you're still around.